We're going to take a look at metabolism and energy and enzymes in Chapter 6. And metabolism is very important because it's what keeps us alive. So let's take a look at metabolism. 6.1, life and the flow of energy. Energy is the ability to do work, and that's just a general definition in any area of science, or to bring about change. Cells and organisms always need a constant supply of energy. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to constantly be eating and taking in energy through food, but we need a constant supply in order to keep our cells alive. Life on Earth is dependent upon solar energy. We know that that's where our ultimate source of energy, and allows for photosynthesis to occur and provide nutrients for plants and also for herbivores and omnivores. From ninth grade science, you'll remember that there are different forms of energy. Kinetic energy is the energy of motion. Potential energy is energy that is stored. Food is a form of chemical energy, and if you don't need it, it gets stored, but otherwise it gets used for metabolism. Here we have a simple diagram showing the solar energy, or the sun, and it gives off heat to the atmosphere. It also is absorbed, that energy is absorbed by green plants and is used to convert sunlight into sugars, and there's also heat given off in that process. Animals eat that, change it to the chemical energy in the food to mechanical energy, so they have movement. And if you notice, at every step, heat is given off as a byproduct. There are two laws of thermodynamics, and these may be familiar from chemistry. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but can only be changed in form. And the law of conservation of energy is what that one has been dubbed. Energy cannot be changed from one form to another without the loss of unusable energy, is the second law of thermodynamics. We'll get into that just a little bit more as we go along throughout the chapter. A leaf cell photosynthesizes. This uses solar energy to form carbohydrates. Some energy at every level is lost as heat. The moose uses carbohydrates to power its muscles, and some of the energy is lost as heat as a byproduct of using the muscles. And that should just make sense. The second law of thermodynamics can be stated another way. Every energy transformation makes the universe less organized and more disordered. This should sound really familiar after covering Chapter 10 in Chemistry 2. Entropy refers to the relative amount of disorganization. Every process that occurs in a cell always does so in a way that increases the total entropy or disorganization of the universe. Cellular processes obviously require an input of energy from an outside source. Living things depend on a constant supply of energy from the sun. This just shows glucose, and energy is given off. Glucose is more organized, it has more potential energy stored in these bonds, and is less stable or less entropy. When it is broken up and used and forms carbon dioxide and water, energy is given off. The carbon dioxide and water are less organized, there's less potential energy, and they're more stable because they're less organized, so there's more entropy. Unequal distribution of hydrogen ions. This is more organized, more potential energy, less stable, less entropy. When energy is given off and those hydrogen ions get distributed across the cell membrane, there's less organization, less potential energy, and more stability or more entropy. Let's look at section 6.2, energy transformations and metabolism. Metabolism is the sum of all the chemical reactions that occur in a cell. Catabolism is the breaking down of molecules. Anabolism is the building of molecules. Now, I know that you've heard metabolism talked about before because you talk about teenage boys especially having a very high metabolism, so they can eat a lot and they burn a lot of calories and they have hardly any body fat on them, where girls may have more of a problem with not being able to eat as much because their metabolism rate isn't as high. And as we get older, unfortunately, that tends to happen for all of us, where the metabolism rate actually is slower than what it is when you're a teenager and you're growing. So the metabolism rate that you have is how quickly the reactions take place and how much energy is used up. The higher the metabolism, the more energy that is used up. Energy transformation, metabolism, again, back to chemistry. Reactants A plus B, your products are C plus D. Free energy, delta G, is the amount of energy that's available. Exergonic reactions are ones where energy is released. And here again, just like exothermic reactions, we had delta H when we talked about this in thermodynamics chapter in Chemistry 2. The delta H is negative when it's an exothermic reaction. Exergonic reactions give off energy in a body, in a living system, and the delta G is negative. The products have less free energy than the reactants. Let's back up. This delta G stands for Gibbs free energy constant. So the products have less free energy than the reactants. If it's an endergonic reaction, you have to put energy into it, which means that delta G is positive, and the products have more free energy than the reactants because energy is put into the system. Exergonic reactions are spontaneous. They release energy. The endergonic reactions require an input of energy to run, and they require ATP or adenosine triphosphate in order to complete them. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Energy currency for cells, so like we use dollar bills, our body uses ATP. Your body can't use a hamburger, and we've talked about this before, mentioned this before. Your body can't use a hamburger like it is, so your body takes it in, you chew it up, it gets mechanically digested, it gets chemically digested, and it has to be ultimately turned into ATP in order for that energy that's in the hamburger to be used to allow your body to function in the way that it needs to function with all the other chemical reactions that are occurring. ATP is generated from ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and an inorganic phosphate molecule, and this is just the symbol here with the P with a circle. In this diagram, what we see is where energy for endergonic reactions comes from, and also where the energy for exergonic reactions is stored. So ATP, and we have the 3 phosphates. This is adenosine, the 3 phosphates. The energy is stored in the phosphate bonds. So in order for energy to be given off to be put into an endergonic reaction, this bond right here has to be broken. When that happens, energy is given off, and you end up with an ADP molecule, which is right here, and a phosphate group. Energy can get put back into this bond reformed, and forms ATP again from ADP and a phosphate molecule, and that stored energy right there is going to be what is stored in order for an exergonic reaction to occur. It will be released during an exergonic reaction. ATP is a nucleotide, and it's made up of adenine, which is a nitrogen-containing base. It's made up of ribose, which is a 5-carbon sugar that makes up RNA, and 3 phosphate groups. And the energy that is stored within the ATP molecule is stored in these chemical bonds between the phosphate groups. Coupled reactions. The energy released by an exergonic reaction is going to be used to drive an endergonic reaction. And we see that here. We have AB, which the coupling reaction is CD, so ATP is going to release energy, and that energy is going to be used to spur the coupled reaction. ATP breakdown is exergonic. Muscle contractions is an endergonic and cannot occur without the input of energy. So anything that requires energy is going to be an endergonic reaction. All right, a little bit of humor over here at the side. If you feel like you have the worst job in the world, I'm sure someone else will have something that's a little bit worse than you do. ATP can be used for chemical work. It powers anabolism. It can be used for transport work, which supplies energy to pump substances across the plasma membrane with active transport, and it can be used for mechanical work, which supplies energy to make muscles contract, the cilia and flagella beat, and so forth. That's going to conclude 6.1 and 6.2 for Chapter 6. One of the things I want you to really try this semester is to pause the videos and fill in your notes like we talked about and give that a shot and see if that doesn't help you with the test scores for Chapter 6.